I'll call to order this January 11th, 2024 meeting of the Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Freeman.
We're here.
Yeah.
Commissioner Geyer.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Kiriako. Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Osborne.
Here.
Commissioner Patino. Commissioner Richardson.
Here.
Commissioner Stark.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Kiriako, Commissioner Nelson, and Commissioner Patino are absent.
Please stand and join me in the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let the record show Commissioner Nelson is here. And turning to our first item of business, the minutes of December 14th, 2023. Are there any changes to those minutes, changes or corrections? And Commissioner Geyer moves approval. Second?
Second.
You call it, Madam Clerk. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are passed.
I will be abstaining from that one. Yeah, that wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay. My understanding is well, let's ask our counsel.
He's free to abstain. He could also go review the record and try to vote on it, but we don't need his vote for the minutes to be approved, so I don't.
But I think it's good for people to know that if you do follow up what happened at the meeting, then you are allowed to vote. Just because you weren't there doesn't mean you have to abstain. So, piece of education. Okay, public comment for matters not on today's agenda. Madam Clerk?
Chair Hartman and members of the Commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
We do have a request? No request. No public comment. All righty. General public comment. All right, Commissioner Stark.
Thank you. Madam Chair. Am I on? No, I'm on. Madam Chair, fellow commissioners, as you may or may not know, I believe I was sentenced to serve on the board of the local League of Women Voters on their education side, and I'd just like to announce that in partnership with the AAUW, University Women, particularly those from Lompoc, Vandenberg, we're sponsoring forums, objective, impartial forums for the candidates for the 1st, 3rd, and 4th district. There's actually 2 for the 3rd district. One Wednesday, January 24th at the Goleta Unified School District headquarters at 6:00 p.m. The other in the 3rd district, which is actually combined with a forum for the 4th district, is at Lompoc, I believe it's Lompoc City Hall, Lompoc Civic Center. That's a 100 Civic Center Drive in Lompoc. That's February 1st. It's right after the Lafco meeting, I believe, between 6:30 and 8:30.
Just a question on that. I think they're to be sequenced and segregated, right? The 3rd and the 4th?
My understanding, and the AAUW is taking primary responsibility for moderating the forum for the North County League. They renamed themselves. I'm not sure what it is. But yes, my understanding is that there would be one forum for the 3rd district, and then a break, and then a forum for the 4th district.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how whether they'll add how they work the questions or not, but I'm sure it'll be good. The 1st district, we're going to have a forum at the Santa Barbara Women's Club on February 5th at 6:00 p.m. The Women's Club's on Mission Canyon Road near the Santa Barbara Mission. Very nice forum. In any event, many of you will be there, I hope, and we hope it'll be objective and enlightening.
That's a tremendous public service, and thanks to the league and all those who are sponsoring. And are you a moderator?
No, I recuse myself from
that role.
from moderating. I think I helped with the questions, but no, and the moderators, both from the AAW.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Does any commissioner have an item that they would like to pull, either disbursements or the second quarter report? Seeing no one, then may I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Osborne and Stark. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So moving to changes of organization number 1, Madam Clerk, would you read that into the record?
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, changes of organization number 1 is to consider approval of Lafco application file number 23-03, annexation of the property located in the unincorporated area of the county at 1330 San Antonio Creek Road, Goleta, California, to the Goleta Sanitary District.
Mr. Prater.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Commissioners. Thank you, Chair. So we are going to be blessed with having our clerk analyst, Natasha, present this, as she wrote the bulk of this report in its package. So we appreciate her effort.
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, we have before you today an annexation for 1330 San Antonio Creek Road to the Goleta Sanitary District. This was an application that was submitted by petition from the landowner. It includes one parcel located at 1330 San Antonio Creek Road with a total of 1 acre. The purpose of this annexation is to annex into the Goleta Sanitary District to provide a sewer connection for the existing single-family residence. And the property is within the district's sphere of influence, which was last updated in 2023. As you can see on the map, the general vicinity of the Goleta Sanitary District roughly this area here. This next map provides further details showing the property location, and the connection would be along the roadway on San Antonio Creek. The land use is residential with one developed lot containing one single-family residence. With this annexation, there is no change in land use that would be facilitated by the boundary change, and it will continue to be within the county under zoning Res 1.0. The landowner submitted the district's plan for service, which outlined the adequacy of their services to be able to provide service to the parcel, which can be found in attachment E. The proposal includes construction of one private sanitary sewer connection laterally that will extend from the subject property to San Antonio Creek Road and will connect to the terminal end of the existing Goleta Sanitary District sewer main. The proposal is categorically exempt pursuant to Public Resources Code sections 2100, section 15301, class 1, section 15303, class 3, and section 15319, class 19. The parcel is uninhabited, which means that there are less than 12 voters. The district has consented in waiving conducting authority proceedings as well as the property owner. Therefore, we can proceed with the approval without any notice and a hearing. To conclude, the site is located in an area that allows the district to be the best service provider as they are providing service to some of the adjacent properties in the area. And on January 26, 2023, the commission chair found it necessary to respond to an existing or impending threat to the health and safety of the public or residents of the affected area. The commission approved an out-of-agency service agreement to be in the best interest of the affected area to be served by the Goleta Sanitary District. Documentation of the threat to public health was provided by the County Environmental Health Services Department. As part of terms and conditions, the landowner consented to future annexation. The annexation represents a reasonable and logical extension of district services. And with that, staff recommends the approval of the project by resolution with the following notations outlined on this slide.
Do commissioners have any questions?
I have a question. Am I correct? This was a landowner petition,
That is correct.
and therefore we're the lead agency for CEQA, or do we never get to the point where we establish a lead agency because we're exempt? And it's maybe existential, but so please forgive me for that. I just like
I'll
You're a
go ahead
lawyer.
and answer that. Thank you, Commissioner Stark, through the chair. So Lafco became the lead agency. So we are adopting the CEQA exemption for that.
thank you.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this item?
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
I'll move the item, option 1.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So now we are on to business item number 1. Madam Clerk.
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, business item number 1 is selection of chair and vice chair for 2024.
And it's my understanding that the cities have not yet met to choose their LAFCO representative for this going forward.
Correct. So as part of my introduction to this item is traditionally the commission follows the rotational appointment to the chair and vice chair. Current vice chair is our special district member, Jay Freeman. And so traditionally, he would move in and slide into the chair position seat if the commission wishes to continue to move forward with the tradition of that transition. And that the city seat is now due for vice chair seat. And so it's at the pleasure of the commission, either of our 2 city members, regardless of their appointment status, are an active member. They can be appointed to the vice chair seat. If at some future event, if by any process of not being reappointed by the special selection committee, simply LAFCO would re-agendize a new item to reappoint a new vice chair. If that happened to be the case, that you chose a member that no longer would serve on LAFCO for that particular reason. So all memberships are basically available for the seat, and I wouldn't necessarily need to have their appointment pending be an obstacle to appointing them.
Well, I'll jump in on this. I think it's obvious. We have a vice chair currently who would come into the chair's position, and maybe we could hold off on the vice chair just till we know for sure who the city's what our candidates are. Would that be amenable to members of the board?
Yes, I brought this up with our director, Mr. Prater, and he suggested that. So I believe the cities would appreciate the opportunity to meet next week, verify our appointments, and make a recommendation for vice chair for the February meeting.
And do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
So is my prerogative as my last thing as chair? May I put forward the motion for our vice chair, Mr. Freeman, to become our chair?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. We get to change places here.
And I will note, just for the record, that the city selection committee is scheduled to meet and make their appointment on January 18th. So
May I ask you would, from that, take direction to put the selection of vice chair on the February 1st LAFCO agenda?
exactly. So we can move that appointment until the February meeting.
Thank you.
Let the record show that Commissioner Patino is now here. Right, is there anything else that we need to do on this agenda item? I believe there is not. Okay, the next item is business item number 2. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to present a certificate of appreciation to Commissioner Cynthia Allen.
Mr. Prater?
Thank you, Chair. We'll get it right. Unfortunately, due to her obligation to her new appointment as district representative of Vandenberg Village CSD, she was unable to retain her seat as a district member for the Water Conservation District. And so unfortunately, she had to resign from her position as alternate. So we wanted to take this opportunity and allow the commissioners to thank her for her time and dedication that she did serve. She was a pretty regular attendee of all of our meetings, even as an alternate, and always weighed in, had good input. So we thank her, and we want to honor you for that. And we have a certificate for you, if you would be willing to accept. And we'll let the chair say any comments and allow other commissioners.
Also on that point then, so I've been very happy having you on this commission, and having your smiling face here has been something that has made it very easy for me in order to come onto this commission at various points. I've known you now for many years, your work at the Vandenberg Village, and then with the CSDA, and so it'll be a bit sad not having you here going forward. But anyone else here have comments they would like to have? Craig.
I want to thank you for all of your work, your wisdom, and your knowledge, and you've been an inspiration to me. Thank you.
I'm excited about your new role, and I hope you'll just stay in touch.
The commission and wish you luck in your new endeavors.
Thank you for all your work.
Is there any? Oh, Commissioner Richardson.
It was good to be an alternate with you. Thank you, Cynthia.
And Cynthia, as someone who is a representative of that district that you're going to be serving in, we really appreciate the work you've done to this point, and we're really looking forward to working with you in the future, just like Supervisor Hartman here. Thank you.
Done with commissioners. It seems like Cynthia might be interested in saying something. Is that why you're at the? No, it's not. Okay. Is there any? All right. We'll not force you to do that. Is there any public comment members that happen to be online that wanted to?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we had no request to speak on this item.
My understanding, I was poked that I'm supposed to go down and present the certificate.
If I may, Chair Freeman, I think of Commissioner Lavanino and how many meetings it took to be able to recognize him. So we're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Presumably there is no motion we have to take on this item. Okay, moving on to business item 3. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, business item number 3 is to provide the commission with a status update from the Ag Urban Ad Hoc Committee and consider a recommendation to pursue a sustainable agriculture lands conservation program grant and develop memorandum of agreements between the 8 cities and the county individually to assist in establishing appropriate spheres of influence.
Mr. Prater.
Thank you, Chair. So the ad hoc committee has met a couple of times and to explore this option that the commission gave them some direction on to. You recall it started out trying to deal with balancing ag and urban, looking at ag policies that we may have had. It sort of morphed into a broader scope of public workshops and whether to attend public workshops and hold public workshops to get a better feel of what the community was interested in, what the individual cities wanted that could help serve their needs and future growth. Ultimately, I think what this ad hoc committee was informed about is we researched a number of our fellow peer LAFCOs and the work that they have done, which was in this arena of the SOLT grants and the opportunities of what they can present, and what are some of our neighboring LAFCOs are doing. And because I was a former LAFCO employee with our neighboring county to the north, there was an excellent program that we utilized, which was the Memorandum of Agreement program approach, which allows the cities and the counties to work together, create some opportunities to open up conversations and communications about what their needs are, and develop an MOA between them that could help guide some future development. So that was presented to this ad hoc group. The direction was that they liked both of those in parallel and in tandem. So the recommendation is to continue to pursue in partnership with others that are interested in the SOLT grant opportunity. Largely our interest in the scope of that is to develop an inventory of land parcels that are in and around adjacent to our 8 cities that would have some interest in maintaining as viable agriculture. With that, as the contrary to that, once we identify the sites that would be best suited to be preserved, that also opens the door to look at where we can develop potential sites. So I think those two work hand in hand in that approach. So the idea is to develop this inventory through this grant opportunity, the partnership with both county, city staff, interested parties such as our conservation districts, maybe the land trust, and get a broad group of interest. And that scope may develop even further as these other partnerships begin to form and they have interest as to what the grant could be utilized for. And then we would bring back this scope of this grant application and the various partners that decide to team up to pursue it, and give a presentation back to this commission about what that opportunity is. That's the grant side of the equation. The second tier of that is building off the information that the grant is hopefully would yield as far as the inventory of available protection sites. Would be to use that information to assist in developing this memorandum of agreement between the cities and the county. And the memorandum agreement is really guided for growth potential opportunities for cities to grow and identify where their spheres of influence would likely be as a result of that. And so the memorandum agreement would be a LAFCO staff facilitated process in which we would bring the two groups together, both city staff and county staff, individually as individual cities would have a unique MOA between them that would be able to deal specifically with their issues that they have, that they want to have addressed. And then at the end of that, hopefully we have a successful MOA that both the Board of Supervisors could approve and the city councils could approve, in which turn LAFCO would use that in our analysis and give it great weight to develop where the spheres of influence could be placed as a boundary for them. So that's essentially the two provisions that sort of came out of our ad hoc study group. We have our ad hoc members here today that can expound even more.
Thank you. As a quick procedural point, will we be looking for a motion to receive and file this? Or are you looking for feedback, or is this really just you will explain, like we will hear from the committee, and then move on with the next item?
The motion I would be looking for is direction for staff to pursue partnership with other interested parties, a SALT grant application, and to develop further an MOA program.
Thank you. I think that'll help drive any possible discussion we end up having. Are there members of the committee that would like to provide their input? Commissioner Hartman.
So the committee was Commissioner Patino and Kiriako and myself, and we're really excited about this approach. It really does go to the heart of where should we be growing and developing, and where really should we not, and bringing resources to help acquire or conserve those areas where we shouldn't. And I think it's really a way to get ahead of the seventh RENA process and make it proactive rather than reactive. And I think Mr. Prater bringing this SALT grant opportunity to us is really visionary. He's also been exploring a tool, the conservation blueprint developed by the Santa Barbara County Land Trust. And that is a wonderful tool for all of us. We may want to get a demo on it, but it can identify groundwater recharge areas, wildlife corridors, different types of soils and climatic conditions. So it's a nice way to overlay different layers of criteria that we might have for areas that we might want to set aside and not develop. One interesting issue that came up, I think, Mr. Prater, and it's come up in other discussions, and that is whether we have to take an agricultural parcel and look at it in a uniform way, or whether that parcel might have certain areas that we want to conserve, but that there are other areas that would be really appropriate for development. I don't know how that fits with principles of zoning and the prohibition against spot zoning, but it raises some, it gives us more flexibility about how we would approach it. So that's kind of a question that we have going forward. But I think this really allows us to get ahead of the game and be talking and agreeing to areas. And I think it'll ultimately streamline the process and make it less expensive for developers who can come forward with housing projects. And just a brief update, I met with the Mr. Bodger and the developers at Bailey Avenue, and they're coming in with a builder's remedy project that is smaller, denser, and would create a straight line and have a big buffer. And so I think it deals with a lot of concerns. So just for what it's worth.
Commissioner Patino.
There. It's all about pressing the right button, right? I want to thank Commissioner Kiriako for assuming the chair of this committee, and he was so gracious to do that. And I think it's really important, as Supervisor Hartman said, to get ahead of this so that we know what's out there and what we have to deal with. And so recently in Santa Maria, we did our general plan update, and we are looking at a possible annexation. We've got 30,000 people we have to put into housing in the next 20 years. And we have people coming and saying, well, you can do infill. Well, infill is going to happen, and that's fine. However, when it comes to a school, a high school takes 10, 12, 15 acres, an elementary school maybe 6 or 8 acres. And the elementary school district person came in and said, we're going to need about 8 elementary schools, a couple, and the high school person said a couple of high schools. So you're talking around, 50, 55 acres. That doesn't exist in Santa Maria right now. I mean, we don't have 1 acre that exists in Santa Maria right now. Then we have the hospital that wants to expand and to build out. So we just need to, and we stopped building on west of Blosser years ago when we told people they could not build there because that is prime ag land. But we're looking at maybe it'd be southeast of Santa Maria where there is a lot of sand, but it's really really good to get ahead of this so that we know what we've got out there and what we have in inventory. But I certainly don't want any conditions that are going to be so protective that we don't have growth, because whether we like it or not, we have growth. We have 2, 3 families living in one house, and that is not a quality of life. Anyway, so I think it's going to be really good to look at this to see what the inventory is out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioners who would like to comment on this item? And I can start with Commissioner Osborne.
I also want to thank the ad hoc for working and putting together a excellent proposal. I would reiterate what Commissioner Patino has said, not to use this as a preventative tool, because Lafco isn't designed to prevent annexation, but do healthy annexations. And if this tool is utilized for that, then it is a good tool. And so for me, it would be to flip it, and instead of the SALC taking priority, having the discussions with the cities about where we're seeing the need for growth and those that want to annex as the first priority, and use the SALC to then help them determine if they can annex, would be a better approach, but that's just my feedback. And the second part of that I would say is that it is a tool that, again, we cannot use as a preventative tool. We've got things like CEQA, we've got NIMBYism, things that are already preventative, and we as an organization have to show we're willing to be a part of the solution. The last part is, I think it's disappointing as a body that we didn't go ahead and move the annexation process forward for the Bodger property, because they obviously have a plan. They obviously wanted this feedback from us, and they're willing to provide and do the things that this committee was concerned about. And us not moving that annexation forward has now made it longer and more expensive for them, because they are not annexed into a community that can provide all of the services they will need to identify, and those residents will pay 1.5 times by being a part of the county. So again, I think we failed that process and failed those developers and slowed that housing down that's desperately needed in an area. So again, our guideline should be this solution as a tool to help us move forward rather than a blocking tool.
Commissioner Stark.
I've just got a couple of fairly technical questions. This is a grant that's got an acronym. I don't quite understand the acronym. Is the state grant, is that correct?
This grant is the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Program.
And it's the state conservation department or something? That's who the grantor is?
It's the Strategic Growth Council.
So, thanks. I know who they are. I don't have any problem with taking inventory and getting information. I think getting information is a good thing without ascribing any particular, value one way or another or not. And so if all you want at this point of our EO wants is direction to seek out partners and talk to the cities, which is what you're talking about, presumably also to the county, and prepare what is necessary to make a grant application, which you would return to the commission. If that's all you want, that seems to me a perfectly reasonable thing to do without putting any judgment on it. What would happen to the ad hoc? Does the hoc go away or does it continue?
Dissolve.
At this point, the ad hoc committee would disband. I think they've served their purpose. If through our analysis and research of pursuing the grant and MOA program, if a new ad hoc committee needed to be formed to focus an area, we could reestablish an ad hoc committee for a new purpose.
Fine, but what you're recommending is that you take it from here, develop what you need to do to ask for the state for the money, and solicit any allies, and then come back to the commission. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like Commissioner Hartman has something to add.
Yes, yes. Just a couple of things. I think the inventory first is really key because that tells us what we have. People are always saying, where can we develop? Well, we have a history of sort of doing this in a random kind of ad hoc way. And so this is to answer that question. Where, given the areas surrounding a city, are the best options for development? And then those that have higher value environmental services or resources or ag land, then those wouldn't be the ones to develop. So I think the inventory does both. And I think that information is the basis upon which then we start to make the decisions and negotiations with the city. Would this work for what your plans are? So I strongly think that that's the case. I am I'm very eager to see what other LAFCOs and counties who may be on the cutting edge. So I hope there'll be an opportunity for a workshop or something. And I know that our own Santa Barbara County Land Trust they developed the blueprint. They have a lot of expertise and interest, and they're just one of many stakeholders. But how exactly we bring them in the process, and all of us may have additional ideas for ones that ought to be consulted.
Thank you. Seems as if commissioner comments have slowed down. Is there any public comment?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, I have no request to speak on this item.
All right, coming back to the commission for potentially moving on to a motion. I know there was something that was specifically being looked for with relation to this grant. I don't know if anyone would want to do that.
May I move staff recommendation?
Madam Chair.
Sure, if
Mr. Chair.
if my understanding of what the staff recommendation is, which is to authorize staff to go forward as described and return to the commission as necessary, that I'd move that, or you could move that.
It's right there.
There you go.
Motion by Hartman, second by Stark. Can the clerk call the roll? Oh, actually, no, we don't need a roll because yeah, that's right, we're all here. Run the vote.
So all in favor?
Oh, I do that part. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Cool.
Okay, motion seems to have passed. Is there anything else we need to cover on this agenda item? I don't think so. Moving on to business item number 4. Can the clerk read that one into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, business item number 4 is to receive and file a report on the 2023-2024 commission activities and adopt a work plan for 2024.
Thank you. Mr. Prater.
Thank you, Chair. We do have a brief PowerPoint for this. This is a good time to reflect on all the work we did in the past year. Pat ourselves on the back, but as you can see, we've got more work to do in the future. We just signed ourselves up for a pretty big work item with a SALT grant and an MOA program. But we're happy to report, at least in the past, in the 2023 year, the commission did hold 10 meetings throughout that year, and we had 4 ad hoc committee meetings. And so we were still busy nonetheless, getting our work done. In addition, staff itself has attended a number of other additional meetings throughout the county, working with our member agencies, both city and special districts, and providing them information about Lafco and the Lafco processes. So this slideshow will basically thank all of those typical county departments that we lean on to get through the year, to do all the work that we set out to do within the Cortese-Knott-Hertzberg Act. So we take the opportunity to thank all of them. We take our opportunity to thank our own staff and the work they do with us. So both Bill and Natasha have put in a lot of work over the past year. And Natasha will continue on with that work, and we wish Bill a happy retirement as he moves forward in his life. But before he goes, we're going to ask him to get a little bit more work done. So throughout the year, we held hearings on 9 different applications. Here's the gamut. Some of them included sphere amendments along the way, along with the annexation. Some of them were out of agency service agreement. We continue to encourage the Los Olivos CSD to pursue their formation and keep their terms and conditions, and various reorganizations that took place. All of those were passed. All of those are making it through the process. There's only two of those that still need to have their final Board of Equalization letters submitted. Some of the other highlights is, some of the big ones is the municipal service review that we've been conducting. We were able to wrap up in May the water wastewater hearing on that. So we had adopted that service review and the spheres that were contained within those. Throughout the year last year, we also did diligent work on the transportation MSR. We are hopeful to hear that conclusion of that today or in the near future here and wrap that up. With that, the City Selection Committee made their appointments. Special districts made an appointment, so we run those processes and monitor state legislation, budget adoption, and paying all the bills and doing the day-to-day operations. So that was essentially 2023 and the work that we did. The plans for 2024 continue to fill our calendar. As you can see, it's going to be a full 2024 for us as well. We anticipate another 20 annexation proposals that are out there on the radar. It's hard to predict often when those come in. We'll show you a list of those. Largely what holds those up when you get to the annexation stage is each of those have to have a private land surveyor to prepare the map and legal description, and that industry is impacted. And so they're often having difficulty getting those map and legal descriptions defined well enough to make the application submittal. But they're all have been calling and assuring me that they're working on those, that they anticipate those coming in. So what didn't come in the anticipated last year will likely come in sometime this year. We hope to continue the municipal service review and SOI program. We now want to embark onto different levels of services, including parks and recreation, library, and rental facility services. So likely next month we'll be moving that forward for the Commission's consideration to launch into that service review. As you can see, we anticipated a SALT grant and MOA partnership. That's going to be on our plans for 2024 and many other activities that we do. We often meet with the civil grand jury every year. We continue to deal with our audits annually and any other appointments and elections that need to continue in the coming year. This is the list of almost 20 or so applications that are on our radar. These are individual landowners or special districts and cities that are calling us, telling us they're working on some sort of application and that they anticipate bringing and submitting that to us at some point in the future. And so if there's anyone on this list that the Commission has specific questions about, we're happy to go back and highlight what those are about. Looking forward on our schedule as we get through January into February, we hope to continue the applications that are submitted. I think we're going to flip-flop Anderson Lane and move that to March, and we're going to move up the initiation of the MSR program into February. We also hope to get a legal counsel contract in February as well. And if we can wrap up our 2022 audit, we are already waiting for us the 2023 audit, which we entered into a new contract with a new auditor, independent auditor to provide that. Which brings us into our April meetings, which really starts our budget process. So that's sort of a look ahead at what's going on. If there are any particular questions about the productive year of last year, the look forward of this year, we're happy to answer any questions about it.
Thank you so much. Are there any commissioners who do have such questions? Commissioner Stark.
A quick question. What is the degree of certainty that you have with respect to the Montecito consolidation proposal and the Summerlin sanitary reorganization? They seem to be different in scope than the other.
Yeah, so those two agencies are continuing to discuss about what their best options are. The last conversations that we've had, it looks less likely as a consolidation option. I think they're exploring the opportunity to do joint work on a water treatment facility for recycled water, and remain as two independent agencies. So we'll see. They haven't made a final decision yet, but it seems to be leaning in that direction versus consolidation.
Thank you.
Interesting. Is there any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair Freeman. I was just had a question about on the radar. I know we have the first few months of 2024 on there, but I know that there's a lot of questions in my area about the Richards Ranch annexation. Do you guys have any idea when that potentially might be coming back to Lafco? I understand there's some still work at the city before it might come back here, but is there anything that the developers communicated with you on that?
I think the latest on that is they're still needing to work through the city, and as we know, sometimes that process in itself can take longer than expected through anything. Their goal was, at the time I last spoke to them, was to have it in late fall as an application before LAFCO. So that would be the soonest I think that they would likely anticipate.
Thank you, Mr. Prater.
Thank you. Is there any, Commissioner Hartman?
Well, I notice on the organizational goals that you've got the MOA program that we were just discussing, but not the SALC grant application. So you might want to add that. And then could you just talk about the timing? And then basically this is kind of how we evaluate ourselves and you at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, so at the end of every year, the commission gives a performance evaluation of their executive officer. And as a product of that, we look to see what other organizational and commission goals that we can pursue. And so this is an opportunity that I took to further express how we can pursue those goals, both personal goals with mentoring staff, giving them more opportunities to shine the light on them and have them do more of the work and get more experience. As we look for the opportunity to do succession planning, if in the event I am not always going to hold the seat, that we have well-versed staff that can take the lead at any point in time. With that is an opportunity to broaden our role and reach in the efforts that we do, such as the MOA program and SALT grant opportunity stuff as organizational efforts that we can do. So this is the opportunity that we took to express what those new enhanced goals are for our commission.
Thank you. Seeing no further comment on the commission, is there any public comment?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
All right. It's my understanding that we do not need a motion on this item. We do have to adopt it?
Yes.
Okay.
So the motion is to accept the work plan for 2024.
Okay, well, I will entertain such a motion.
So moved. With that proviso that the SALT grant application gets added.
Second.
Motion by Hartman, second by Patino. Moving on, actually, do we have to ask for public comment? Sorry, do we have to ask for public comment on the motion or just on the, no, okay. All right, okay, great. Moving on to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion seems to have passed. All right, sir.
Okay. Just for the record, Commissioner Williams stepped out, and so Commissioner Nelson is voting on his behalf, and we have a 7-0 vote.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to business item 5. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, business item number 5 is for the commission to consider approving opportunities for additional staffing support and to consider adoption of the contractual agreement with Santa Cruz and Marin Lafcos for shared services opportunities on an as-needed basis.
Mr. Prater.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, there is an existing shared service agreement between Marin Lafco and Santa Cruz Lafco, and most recently added to that agreement is Tuolumne County Lafco. There's a third partner that has made their way onto this shared service agreement, and they approved. Marin and Santa Cruz Lafco have approved that within the last year. And they're exercising that. And so we are asking to be a party to that agreement and join in with both those two Lafcos and now Tuolumne Lafco as well. And the goal is to really provide some staffing assistance on a as-need basis whenever we think we might need it. This item was largely brought forward from our Commissioner Stark, who attended our Cal Lafco conference, where those two, Marin and Santa Cruz Lafco, raised the idea that they had a joint venture in doing a shared service agreement and offered other Lafcos within the coastal region to join in on there if they had any interest. And so it was requested that we bring this item back forward and solicit interest from the commission if they wanted to join in as well. And so the agreement would be between 4 Lafcos at this point to provide any staffing services, and basically would allow anything be billed out on a times and resources kind of allocation, depending on which particular Lafco that we lean on to provide the service on their availability to do so and at their overhead rate to pay for that. And we'll do that. Yeah. So we do have both the EOs from Marin Lafco and Santa Cruz Lafco attending this meeting on Zoom. And so we would ask the commission consider this, and it's noted from our legal counsel here that if you do intend to authorize this, that it be a conceptual motion so that we can take the formal agreement as our signature line is not on the agreement that's attached. That has been updated, and they will include both Tuolumne and Santa Barbara Lafco as authorized through your executive officer to sign on behalf of you to join this shared service agreement. But we can route that through risk management and bring that back for formal adoption of allowing the executive officer to sign that agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any commissioners? I think I saw Mr. Nelson's hand up.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Freeman. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think that's something that we should move forward with. I think it's not only good for us to be able to lean on other LAFCOs, but it's also good for our staff. I understand, right, our staff will be able to help in some of these other jurisdictions, which is, I think, is a good thing for us to be able to have that cross-training. I'm sure there's problems that happen in these counties that we may not be familiar with, and being able to have that seems to be a great benefit, and I really encourage us to move forward. I do see that if it's over 5 hours, then we start to charge each other. Is that the mechanism that I see on how this works? And I guess at some point, I'm sure there'll be, I don't know if it's a rate study or how we figure that out for each LAFCO moving forward. But I'd be interested in seeing that. I don't necessarily need that for approval, but just what is Santa Cruz charging and vice versa.
Okay, thank you to the Chair, Commissioner Nelson, to answer that question. So we would individually ask each LAFCO what staff would be working on any particular project. They would give us a budget and a timeline of what that expected cost would be before we entered into that particular service agreement. Right now, Santa Cruz LAFCO's billing rate is $138.27 per hour. Marin's rate is 105.46 per hour, and our rate is 175. I don't know what Tawala means.
That helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I had Commissioner Hartman.
Yes. My question has to do with if you could give us I'm very supportive. I believe in leveraging. I think that this is really a superior proposal. But given that we do have Santa Cruz and Marin Lafco's online, I'm just curious if they've had experience with it, if they could describe a few case studies or how it's actually been operationalized so I can envision it a little more. Just, again, I'm supportive. I just would like to know more.
Great recommendation. So if we have either Joe Serrano or Jason Freed online, if either of you'd like to raise your hand and be unmuted and answer the commissioner's questions, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go first here. Jason Freed, Marin Lafco. To be fair, we have not yet formally used this agreement yet, although tomorrow Joe is going to be driving up to Marin County to be our facilitator in a workshop we're doing. So that's like an example of where instead of us going out and finding an outside facilitator, we had a neighboring Lafco do that. We believe we're actually going to get a cheaper cost for having Joe facilitate the meeting for us than we will having an outside facilitator that may or may not know the ins and outs of a Lafco. So this is like a perfect example that will be occurring tomorrow, where we're sharing services and resources between agencies to help each other out.
If I might ask, was there any specific instance that gave rise to this idea?
It was a combination of two things. We don't have a GI, or at least when I first started here, we did not have a formal GIS expert. Joe has some of that experience, so he was like helping us with stuff, and reality was coming out that maybe he's spending a few too many hours helping us, and we should be reimbursing him for those costs. The other side was that ended up not being needed was, and I see Joe has his hand raised, so if someone wants to unmute him, they can. He was going to have a kid. He had a kid earlier last year, and might have needed some support from EO services while he was taking care of his newborn. And so we would be available to help him do that if that were the case. So there were a couple different scenarios that popped up where this idea first came about as being a potentially good resource. And like is mentioned, I think it's not for quick things like if you just have a quick question, we're not going to charge each other for stuff. It's more that hey, you need a few hours worth of work. And so maybe at that point, that's where we should be charging each other to help, make sure that my Lafco is not paying for work I'm doing for you. And your Lafco is not paying for work that your EO might do for us. We're covering each other's costs that way.
And I'll add more information. This is Joe Serrano, Executive Officer of Santa Cruz Lafco. And some of the commissioners may have already heard me say this. No one goes to school to become a Lafco employee. So we stumble upon this career and we're the experts. So why not utilize our expertise in this unique local government environment? And so that's why, instead of trying to teach people what Lafco is and an outside consultant, why not just maximize the resources that are available? And another example that one of the commissioners asked, if we can give examples, it can be as simple as, can you review this draft policy or this draft staff report just to have another pair of eyes? And if it's less than 5 hours, then yeah, we won't charge anyone. But if there's some more complex projects that we need assistance and expertise, for example, like Mr. Jason mentioned about me facilitating their workshop tomorrow, I've been doing this for 15 years. Half my life has been devoted to Lafco. So I've seen successful facilitators, and I know what the commission is trying to accomplish. So rather than having an outside consultant that may cost way more than what I'm charging, they're getting a sweetheart deal because to me, this is good government. And having this type of expertise available for all LAFCOs is something that we're really trying to advocate and encourage. It doesn't require Santa Barbara to provide services to any other LAFCO. It's only as an as-needed basis or vice versa. We're just trying to help each other out when we can. So I really support this idea, and I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share our thoughts.
Thank you so very much. Are there any other commissioners who have Commissioner Guyer?
I have a couple of questions. The first one is probably for council. I know there's an indemnity clause and there's an insurance clause in the agreement. Are you comfortable with both?
Well, I have to admit being a little caught flat-footed on this one when I realized it's being proposed for actual approval and it's not set up with the normal signature line for the chair, the council, or risk management. So that's just glancing at it quickly, I didn't see any dramatic issues there, but it should go through the regular review. And that's normally initiated by circulating a draft agreement. So what Mr. Prater and I just talked about was working up a draft agreement where you would join this collective agreement with the other two LAFCOs, and then that issue would be specifically reviewed. So at this point, I don't have any comment on it.
Okay. And my second concern a little bit is, I think LAFCOs have, a really good ability to reach out to Cal LAFCO for a lot of stuff, basically for a second set of eyes and stuff. But I have some concerns for our funding entities of SB LAFCO could view this as kind of a giving away of our services that they fund. So how would you address that?
Well, I think as noted in the report and the way it operates between the two existing LAFCOs is it's really on a case-by-case basis as to whether or not we have the time and the resources to loan out our services to another LAFCO. So if we are diligently working on something else that's taking our time, we would politely decline the ability to lend out our services. I think it only serves all the entities if it's something that we have time to do, and that it's not going to be something that is going to be exorbitant in our time or cost, and that we work out the arrangement for reimbursement if it is. So if I am called upon to provide some assistance in some way, and it was, for example, me traveling to Marin to do this facilitated service rather than Joe, we'd be getting reimbursed. So the cost wouldn't be borne necessarily by our special district or our member agent. It's going to be borne by the other LAFCO for my time of service. And it really behooves me to utilize when my time is best available to provide that type of service. And if we have other pressing work, then I'll have to decline my service time. And I would expect the same from them.
Thank you, Mr. Prater. Commissioner Stark?
Yes. This seems like a pretty good idea. I just like to ask, did you make any effort to reach out to San Luis and Ventura? I mean, it seems they would be more or as logical and probably less expensive
I personally
people.
did not reach out. I'm not sure if either Joe or Jason reached out as a personal invite to either of them, but I did not.
You would not. There's no reason why you wouldn't, I suppose.
Right, and we weren't party to the agreement at this point, so we were just looking to see whether or not it benefited us.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other commission comments or any public comment on this item.
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you so much. Just to make certain, I saw a little twitch maybe from Commissioner Richardson. Was that a raise your hand? No. Okay. Being a little bit trying to make certain I get everyone included here. So hair trigger. All right. Is there a, I guess I will entertain a concept of a motion on this item.
Well, I'll make an actual motion, whether it's not a concept.
Well, I think we were supposed to provide a conceptual motion.
He can direct staff to do so.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
The motion would be to direct staff to return to the commission after going through the normal indemnity and risk management review procedures with a completed document that's satisfactory to them. And I'd add to them the process where I would encourage the staff to reach out to San Luis and Ventura counties to see if they're interested in joining this. It seems to me is that the more, in this case, the more you have, the merrier. You never know what's going to save you money in any specific case. So
It's like a mouthful of emotion, but is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Stark, second by Hartman. Moving on to a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. And you did okay, great. And motion seems to have passed. Is there anything else we need to cover on this agenda item before moving on? Okay, moving on to business item number 6. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, business item number 6 was continued from our December 14th, 2023 meeting. It is to consider the adoption of a service and sphere of influence review for the 23 agencies that provide transportation, parking, street sweeping and beautification, lighting, transit, and airport services in Santa Barbara County.
Thank you, Mr. Prater.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. Let's see if we can make an attempt at getting through this item for today. We do have a PowerPoint presentation. This is the service review for the transportation MSR, we're going to call in short form. This Cortese-Knott-Hertzberg Act requires that LAFCOs update their spheres of influence every 5 years. As part of that program, we have adopted an approach to look at services as a model, topic model. The sphere of influence is a 20-year planning boundary in itself. It doesn't convey any additional authority or any property rights to anybody about whether or not you're in or out of a service review. It's a planning boundary to theoretically decide who would be best to serve in any particular instance, a particular set of services that agency provides that you're amending the sphere to. As part of the service review, there are 7 factors that we have to evaluate. The service review looks at all of those 7 factors. You have to provide a minimum 30, in this case, we provided over 30 days public review period since we continued it. We've now completed this update as far as the service review, and we are looking to adopt the findings of that and establish some spheres of influence for 12 of the agencies. The list of 23 agencies are on this overview map and listed on the left-hand column. It demonstrates that throughout the county, there are a number of services agencies that provide a variety of service types within the range of scope of the transportation service model. Some of the key determinations that were made that we wanted to highlight is that 3 of the community services districts, which happen to be Cuyama, Isla Vista, and Santa Rita Hills, they have spheres of influence that essentially matches their boundary as today. So their service boundary is also coterminous with their sphere of influence boundary. As is 2 of the lighting districts, Guadalupe Lighting and the Mission Canyon Lighting District. And then all 4 of the county service areas, CSA 3, 11, 31, and 41, along with the Santa Maria Airport Public District and the Metropolitan Transit District. These all have spheres of influence that are matching their district boundaries. Those total of those 11 of the 23, some of those are recommended to be amended. Many of them are recommended to remain as is, still coterminous with their service boundary. 5 of the cities, we have 8 cities in our county. 5 of those cities have sphere boundaries that extend beyond their city limit line. They include Carpinteria, Lompoc, Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and Solvang. The 2 cities, Buellton and Goleta, and 3 cities, I guess, Buellton, Goleta, and Guadalupe, they're all coterminous with their city limit line. All the other agencies, includes the 3, that's Mission Hills CSD, Santa Ynez CSD, and the North County Lighting District. They have service boundaries or spheres of influence beyond their service boundary as well. In some cases, they may be small and minimal, handful of parcels. In other cases, they may be large sphere boundaries that are anticipated for future services. The goal of this service review is to look at all of those boundaries and try to determine what is the best fit for a service that's being provided in or around or adjacent to that. And we've done that through a number of areas. We've looked at study areas within those for various districts. And within those study areas, we've determined whether or not some future service would likely be provided. And if it was, who was the best service provider for that. And if it happened to be the agency that we were studying, then I made a recommendation that we expand their sphere to include that territory. And that happens to be the case for two of those that we're talking about. That was the amendment of the Santa Rita Hills Community Service District to include the memorandum of agreement easement that currently is not within the agency's boundary, but certainly through the process of gathering information, it appears that the road may be built by a private entity, and that if it is going to get built, then somebody has to service that at some point. And the best service provider is the only service provider in the area, which is the CSD. Even though currently the CSD is an inactive district, it has no functioning board. The goal would be to encourage the board to become functional, get their arrangement house in order, and be able to provide legitimate service in the district. If that could not be achieved, the recommendation is that we allow some certainty of time to allow them to get some functionality to them. If they cannot become functional, the recommendation would be then to pursue this of that district. For the Santa Ynez CSD, we included a study area from a previous service review, which was part of the water wastewater service provider, as they were the primary wastewater provider in the area. The recommendation was to include a larger portion west of Janin Acres. It got closer to the city of Solvang. The area is currently within the sphere of influence of the city of Solvang. The commission has approved a handful of out-of-agency service agreements in this area because the CSD happened to have a sewer line, a main sewer line, that runs to the joint treatment plant of Solvang and Santa Ynez. And so the primary service provider that made the most sense was actually Santa Ynez CSD because they can tie a lateral into their main line. And so we approved those out-of-agency service agreements for those purposes. So we looked at it in a broader context of, well, if any other agency or any other parcels along this corridor of this sewer line needed services, who would be the better service provider? And since we were already authorizing connections to Santa Ynez CSD, I felt the recommendation should be Santa Ynez CSD boundary should expand because they would be the better service provider. But we're not taking away Solvang's sphere at this point. Still to be studied. Similarly, with Santa Rita Hills, these are the two areas that sphere boundaries are going to expand. And so we did a CEQA analysis for that that looked at the land use and the regulations that are in place and whether or not there was any expected changes to occur. We did not see any, so we felt the exemptions that we applied were adequate for our analysis. Number of public outreach occurred along the way when we initiated the process to start it. We obviously reached out to the 23 agencies. We worked with their staff to develop an admin draft to provide comment and feedback on. We brought the item back to the commission to hear periodic status updates for the community and the public to provide feedback on. We released the service review for a public review period. We published a notice in the paper to adopt the document itself and gives the ample opportunity for the public to provide comment. And we did receive public comment, and we'll get into that. The public comment that we received had not related it to any particular changes in the document itself. It had other commentary that we'll go over, but staff did find in our own review some editorial corrections and typos and fixes that we needed to make within individual profiles of the chapter. So we've included those as attachment D, as to notate what changes need to occur there. There was an initial single public comment letter that came in early when we anticipated hearing this in December. Since then, we've received a handful of other comments, and I would address some of those comments. First and foremost, there was a comment related to the Isla Vista CSD and about whether or not the service review itself is granting the district power and authority to do solid waste service. What I want to say about that is this service review does not do that, right? That's a latent power that's been identified in the service review plan. They do not have the power to do solid waste. We've noted that in the service review plan. It does not authorize them to do that. They would need to seek a separate application to activate that power. And I do have a meeting with their general manager in the coming weeks, and we're going to talk about that process and how to assist them if they wanted to pursue that that particular power. So that addresses the one comment on IVCSD public comment. There were another handful of comments both for and against whether or not we should adopt a sphere of influence for the Santa Rita Hills CSD, and will allow the public community to have that process, that public comment period, to address those issues. What I would note is that when we embarked on this process, we sought a number of gathering information about Santa Rita Hills. And with that, we looked back in the history of the applications that were submitted to this commission, which included a sphere of influence request to amend to include MOA Road with several alternatives, with an alignment of the MOA Road, with a county road alignment permit, with an alternate alignment that would use an existing ranch road. That application never made it forward. They also submitted an application for latent power activation that never saw the commission's action on that. There was an application that was submitted to dissolve the district itself and form a new bridge and highway district. And ultimately, the commission took an action that would dissolve the district just flat out. And that went through a process, through a protest process, was defeated by the community and the residents. And so with that in mind, there seems to be a lot of activity that was sort of started and stopped with an attempt to do something out in the Santa Rita Hills area. So as your staff, I took all of that information in, did an analysis about whether or not is there going to be roads built out in this area? And if there were going to be a road built out in this area, as we had talked about, there seems to be an opportunity at this time for an individual to build a road over that MOA road easement area. And if that is going to get built as a private road, and ultimately more roads would need to be built within the subdivision itself so that individual landowners can gain access to their driveways to their houses that they hope to pursue in the future, there needs to be a service provider. And so as staff, I looked at that and identified the obvious service provider if roads are going to be developed in this area is Santa Rita Hills. And so I made a recommendation that we include a sphere amendment over this MOA easement road as an opportunity for some future maintenance and improvements for the district as it moves forward, if it can get itself functional. In that recommendation, it nowhere implies that we are trying to take any property right or consume or purvey that the district has any additional authority or control over a sphere. That's not what a sphere of influence boundary does. It's merely a planning boundary that identifies some future need of service. And if that exists, then we likely need a service provider. So that's really how we got to this recommendation. And ultimately, like I said, in the service review itself, it spells out that if the board of the Santa Rita Hills cannot become a functioning board within a reasonable time frame, Lafco can initiate its dissolution process once again and move forward with what we feel is the best needs for services of that community in that area. So with that, I'll conclude my presentations with the recommendation is to continue to take public comment. Commissioner, ask any questions. And ultimately, if you decide to approve this service review and sphere of influence, that we approve the CEQA documentation with that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Just a procedural quick point first. This is not in order. It is not that you're recommending that we take public comment first. I know this is a formal hearing, that there might be a process we have to follow, so I'm just verifying that we can.
No, Commissioner can ask any particular questions of me that you may have related to the document before you take public comment.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to jump in here because I believe that if I bring up the topics about to come up, it's to be a little bit more friendly, maybe a little bit more neutral to open the discussion this way. There was a email that was floated around between the general managers of some of the districts in Isla Vista early this afternoon, which I received a copy of really mere minutes before this meeting ended up beginning, that had some concerns about particularly one word that seemed a bit harsh, I will say, against in the Goleta West Sanitary District MSR, that says that they characterized the street sweeping that was occurring in Isla Vista as ineffective, and I think I know what the goal of this was, and even where the wording had originated from, to try to say that with the cars that were parked throughout Isla Vista, that it was almost impossible to get to some of the curbs. But I think that can also be read as to say that the work that is being done by Goleta Sanitary is almost pointless, and that is certainly not the case, and that is something that I know that the Goleta Sanitary has put a lot of effort specifically into Isla Vista, and in discussion and trying to kind of ease this about, I don't know if it's still possible to change that one word to challenging, but that is something that people that we're discussing. So, and I don't know if that will be entirely sufficient, but again, I think that me opening that might be a little bit easier than forcing that on others. Are there any comments or questions from the commission? Looks like Mr. Stark.
I do have a comment. I would note that within the last 2 days, we probably got maybe 100 pages worth of legal documents concerning the Santa Rita Hills matter. And I should tell you, I'm familiar with this controversy. It's been going on for a very, very long time. And before going forward with this, and I'm pretty good understanding of why you would want to expand the sphere of influence. It allows out-of-agency service agreements. It is the primary practical immediate significance. Otherwise, if you wanted to annex something, you could couple it with an application for a sphere amendment at the time. I'm reluctant to go jumping in within this close to receiving all this information without having some competent advice from our counsel about whether we have any reason to not go forward and what our options are. I don't want to cast aspersions one way or another. I'm just uncomfortable with the temporal relation of the lot of documents with the attendant court judgments and the time we're called upon to make this decision. So I'd like to punt it down the road a little bit if that's just this particular Santa Rita Hills thing. The rest of it, I don't have any interest in. My understanding, the public question about the IVCSD improperly engaging in solid waste, that's not before us. If we could confirm that, it'd probably smooth our path going forward.
I will actually ask quickly if the legal counsel believes this will be a long answer. I have a reason why I'm asking.
On which one, the IVCSD?
Probably the
Santa Rita Hills.
The Santa Rita Hills one.
A lot of issues were raised in those two letters. So
I would like to pause this point for just a moment. I'm really sorry about this, but Commissioner Nelson will be leaving within minutes, and I would like to make certain that any input he would like to provide can be provided, and then we'll get right back to this point.
Thank you, Chair Friedman. I don't. I mean, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I thought that was the reason why this note was handed to me. Okay, then moving back to the issue with Santa Rita Hills. Yes.
Oh, I think what Mr. Stark is suggesting is if this matter is considered, that the commission might want to continue the Santa Rita Hills portion of it, and then have legal counsel report back, probably legal counsel and executive officer, since he knows the facts better than anyone. And I would just point out that our next hearing's on the 1st, which is only 3 weeks away. Docket times and all that sort of thing would make it just about impossible, not impossible, but it'd be really a lot of work to get this back to you on the 1st. I would suggest if you continue it, you probably should defer discussion continuance until you get the public comment, but I would suggest you're looking at your March hearing date.
Yeah, 2 weeks is just, my concern would not be alleviated without short of a time. I want to make sure that we get a good look at it, and I think March probably would be adequate.
Just to be transparent, report back might be an element of Mr. Prater responding on the merits with legal counsel's input, and then also a confidential legal counsel opinion, which would not necessarily be public.
To verify, given the scope of the answer you've provided, it sounds like you're stating that this would be useful as our legal counsel, that be confidential commentary, things like that.
It would be useful. I don't want to suggest that anything that Mr. Prater is recommending today is legally inappropriate. I think it's pretty solid, but a lot of things have been thrown out, and that's sort of the nature of the business sometimes. And if there's some deadline, that'd be maybe a different answer. But you know, if you, and also, you know, keep in mind we're going to have a transition of counsel in March, so give us a chance if we sign the new counsel to a contract in February to also coordinate there.
Okay. Will we run into any timeline issues with this if we end up pausing it?
There's a I don't, Mr. Prater, is there a timeline on the SOI?
No.
Okay, great. Looks like Commissioner Guyer has something to add.
So could I take it then that we could take 6D2 and change it into 2A for the first part and 2B for the second part, and we could take action separately? Would that accommodate what you're thinking?
I don't, confessing my own technological inability, I don't have the agenda in front of me, so I don't know the A from the B.
The circle part could be a separate motion for that?
Yeah, I would think.
It could be done. You still might want to get public comment or additional commissioner comments and input before you start fashioning a motion, but certainly that's a good idea to put out for public consideration and the fellow commissioners. And what Mr. Guyer is saying about D2, I think it's the last half of that paragraph, affects Santa Rita Hills. And I think that's a good starting point.
Thank you. Is there any commentary? Seeing none over here. Anything extra over here? Is there any public comment?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we do have requests to speak on this item, and we will begin with Mr. Patrick Morris.
Welcome, Chair Freeman, and members of the commission, thank you. I very much enjoyed the dialogue that just went on. Probably helps to truncate some of my comments. In my letters that I sent, and I do apologize for sending the one late yesterday, but I think the commission needs to understand that even though I represent a substantial number of stakeholders, the property that's to be affected by this SOI, the people who are going to benefit from the proper access road, we've never been consulted about any of this. We only learned about this effectively accidentally before the October 5th proceeding. And I didn't even have an opportunity to discuss it because, as you can see, I have a large group of people I represent. They don't always agree together, and we've got to work things out. So I noticed in the slide, I think in the first slide, it indicated that there was information gathering in March and June. Well, not from the stakeholders that I represent, who are 20% of the landowners within the CSD and the adjacent landowners in various splits of the family. But we were never consulted. Nobody talked to us as stakeholders in this. So Commissioner Stark's position throughout this about information, both in this and in other business items, information drives informed decision-making as far as we're concerned. We ended up having to throw a lot of information out in a short period of time, for which I apologize. But had we been consulted in the process from the day it started, and this was even being considered, I suggest to this commission, you'd be a lot better informed. Commissioner Hartman, in her position as supervisor, did have a telephone conference with my clients and I earlier this year, but it wasn't in relationship to MSR SOI. So I don't want to indicate that no one has ever reached out. I think we had a very productive conference at that time. So I won't go in. I would absolutely support this board effectively slicing out these two, the exhibits that we described. In one of our letters, we asked for the same thing, frankly, that Commissioner Geyer just suggested doing, which is take out that last sentence of D2 and take out the exhibits that are attached to the proposed resolution. There's a lot of background that goes on in this, and one of the most important things is there is not now and has not for 10 years been a functioning Santa Rita Hills Community Services District. The concept that this commission would wait another 10 years is not really feasible. It's not had a board for 10 years. This concept that's in the report and that has been bandied about that somehow it can operate as a three-member board is simply legally inaccurate. It's unfortunate that Commissioner Williams is not here. He was the author of that particular legislation, which was passed and codified. And it has at least 6 preliminary conditions before you could reduce this board to 3. Not one of them has ever happened. So this board cannot be 3. It needs to be 5, and I think we should continue that forward. So my position, I will note, though, that in a potentially positive outcome, yesterday this development notice was placed on my client's ranch. And this reflects that Mr. Blanco is seeking to grade a new road through an easement on an existing agricultural field. Since in last year and still now, Judge Staffel ordered that Mr. Blanco could only do so in connection with implementing the MOA. Presumably that's what he wants to do, or he'd be violating the court's judgment. And this may be a solution even before March that we might actually start to see some progress. So thank you all for your consideration, but we ask you to do that tabling, and if not, I appreciate that we would have some sort of meeting with stakeholders where I'm not limited by a ticking clock, and I thank you for the overtime, Chair Freeman.
It was only a few seconds, so. we do not have an actual clock up here, so I'm actually kind of like balancing multiple clocks, and I was given a Post-it note with an approximate minute cutoff, so
Right.
I don't think you really want to.
Dialogue is a lot better than speeches, so I encourage dialogue on this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Are there other public comments?
We will now go to Marty New, to be followed by Hank Blanco on Zoom, who will be our final speaker.
Thank you.
My son's home from college, and he said, "Mom, excuse the glasses. The real ones are in the field. They'll show up. Or some gopher is getting some great views." Anyway, my son said, "Mom, do you go to these meetings because that's the only time you dress up out of your jeans and long johns?" And yeah, the fact is, I do shower before I come to these meetings. So thank you for that opportunity. My son also thanks you. So I'm going to jump in a way that Mr. Morris's comments incite. We have had an active board. 3 years ago, we had an active board. We had a quorum of 3. We had legislation that was passed that allowed our board to be active. One of those members moved from the district and legitimately had to resign. There are very good reasons, and in the overlong dissertation I wrote on the district with typos, I explained why people were not willing to step up to serve on the board. And that was a very clear catch-22. That there are 3 properties grandfathered in that have the legitimate right to reside on property. One of those is dilapidated and vacant of one of his clients, Peter Kargasaki. The other 2, they have what they need, access to their properties without mud fights and getting stuck in the mud. In fact, the neighbor last week just said, "Marty, I'm pulling you out, but when you're getting your 4-wheel drive." Okay, starts and finishes or starts and stops. Why does that happen with our district? Because we're farmers. I've just come out of back-to-back harvest. I've gone from grape to olive. We had so much abundance of olives. I had 2 olive harvests, and now I'm in citrus. Now, when you're in harvest and you have to commute into your property at 4 a.m. in the morning, harvest all day, and dangerously get out with crop because our roads are getting worse every time we have a rain. It doesn't get less expensive, it gets more. It doesn't get safer, it has gotten more challenging. Hanging off the side of the road with 2,000 pounds on the back of your truck, that's scary. I'm scared for my son, not for myself, because I'm getting that crop in, but my son needs his mother. And my son deserves his land and our family land. We are property owners and proud of it. And we are farmers, good farmers, regenerative farmers. We have a monarch preserve that is partnered with Xerces. We do the right kind of farming that makes this county proud. And I'm proud to be part of this county and to be one of those farmers. The obstruction to our board is through harassment, frivolous lawsuits, outright threats from this man primarily and his constituents.
And I'm
And
terribly
it
sorry, but
is
we're now just a little
difficult
bit over 3 minutes.
to live
and that was
under that
approximately how
pressure.
much time that was given
What
to
we do need
Mr.
is your support for everyday people like myself who are not attorneys, but have a right to farm their land and to have a home on their land. And I ask you graciously, you've been supporters, and we deserve it. We work hard, and we'll continue to make sure that board is in place. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Are there any public comments? Any other public comment?
We will now go to Hank Blanco on Zoom, who is our final speaker.
Thank you.
Commissioners Freeman, I have horrible feedback. Can you all hear me?
We are also getting that horrible feedback.
Not sure what to do about it.
Oh, that. Maybe on your side, if you were to turn the volume on your speaker down so that it would not have any possibility of feedback.
Any better?
I believe that in fact is better, but you probably can't hear me, so I'm going to give you giant thumbs up.
I'm assuming thumbs up, but I can't hear you. Okay. All right, we have our own internal IT department. Chair Freeman and board members, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and speak. For myself as a landowner and on behalf of many of the other 38 landowners that unfortunately cannot be here. For the past, since 2012, I've been very intricately involved with how do we resolve, a 57-year-old problem. And we have to ask the question, why are we here? Back in 1967, 57 years ago, Lakeview subdivision was created without a public road to it. And after many efforts, including but not limited to the creation of the Santa Rita Hills Community Services District, even Judge Staffold in December of 2022 opined that it is time to build the MOA road and connect the public road, Sweeney, to the district so that the district can function. I want to commend Mr. Prather, his predecessors, and certainly Mr. Dillon and his staff for the efforts that they have made in coming to this recommendation today. And if you were to meet any of the landowners, they would all agree to one thing, and that is that there's been nothing but, fear, uncertainty, and delays created by one family to make this district not be functional. We need this district as a public safety issue and for the rightful enjoyment of parcel owners. I urge you to approve and enable this community services district to move forward and be functional. with the construction of this road. I believe we will have a lot more interested parties because for the first time in many years, those that remain owners will be motivated to help serve and develop a beautiful side of the Santa Ynez Valley. So with that, I'll keep it brief and happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments?
Chair Freeman and members of the
Whoops.
commission, we have no additional requests to speak on this item.
All right, moving back to the commission. Are there any further commissioner comments or? All right.
I'm not sure whether my question is for staff or for council. I'd like to know if you could explain what our jurisdiction is concerning the lawful composition of the CSD, whether it has 3 members, whether it complies with this or not. Is this our concern or some other law enforcement agency that needs to be concerned with it or might be concerned about it? I don't want to prejudice it.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, generally, some of these objections are not within the purview of Lafco to investigate and make determinations. Now, that being said, if Mr. Prater comes across information by a body with jurisdiction to oversee, is the district functioning properly? Do they have enough board members to operate? Well, if he comes across that information and it's verified through, grand jury, attorney general investigation, whatever, then of course he's going to take, notice of that when he does his MSRs on this district. So, but every time there's an allegation of some impropriety or Brown Act violation, and I remember initially when the district was being formed, there's allegations of improper voting and improper registration. My advice then was that that's not really Lafco's job to go out and investigate the voter rolls. If someone wants to file a complaint with the district attorney's office, they can walk just down the street and do that anytime they want to. Attorney general can also be involved. Grand juries can be, requested to look into matters. But Lafco, it's just not your purview to try to investigate and resolve every objection that's raised with regard to this district.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Commissioner Geyer?
I'd like to speak a little bit to, I guess, 6D2. And let's see. I mean, I feel like I personally don't need the clarity, but maybe the public needs the clarity of what staff is really asking for. As I read it, basically all you're asking for is to include that Santa Rita Hills area as a study area. No action, no nothing. Is that correct?
The first few words of that paragraph say amending the sphere of influence. So it's a study area, but it is amending the sphere of influence. It's not just a study area.
So the request is to amend the sphere of influence and include a study area.
They're both one and the same action, and as Mr. Prater looks at spheres of influence. And
So I took it that the amend the sphere of influence was just for the Santa Ynez Community Service District.
No, it says amend the Santa Ynez Community Service District, and then you drop on down and study area number 1 for the Santa Rita Hills CSD.
Okay.
So it recommends both. And if you want to break out Santa Rita Hills, Mr. Prater and I have a proposed amendment to the draft resolution, which would do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to make certain it's not forgotten. Commissioner Stark earlier had 2 questions that he had asked, and then I kind of played a little jump in trying to make certain that Nelson could get in any comments that he had, but there was a question about whether there were actually any questions today before us today about the IVCSD. For what it's worth, I believe the answer is no, because I don't think the sphere of influence is happening this year, and I think that the other decision, as you already said, isn't really the decision anyway right now, but I want to make certain he gets his question answered.
I think the answer was no. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah.
I got a satisfactory one-word answer.
Okay.
Can't do better than that.
Great. All right. Any comments from over here about this? Okay. So I know there was some attempts at potentially carving out the motion with respect to how to deal with the Santa Rita Hills punt. I don't know if that came to any kind of conclusion, any kind of a motion might be actually made. Herman?
So I just had a question. I mean, this has been going on for many years. We have lots of stacks of legal documents and paper. And so I'm asking our legal counsel and our executive officer, is there something new to be learned by going through these documents? Would this information provide us something in addition? Or would waiting allow the road to be finished and that would give us something more to deliberate about?
I think from our standpoint at the desk here is we don't know what's that's been submitted. It just hasn't been enough time to go through it all. So I think it benefits us as your staff to pour through it in a little bit more finer detail to be able to get that answer back to you. So the request was essentially to carve out Santa Rita Hills in its final decision about whether or not to amend the sphere. We would accept the service review, but we wouldn't amend the sphere. We would continue that decision until March, in which time we would bring back some further information and its own resolution about whether to amend it or to keep it the same or to do something else.
Okay, so that's staff recommendation.
I guess I have a question. I just remember, I just want to check on the status of the possibility of that word ineffective and making it challenging in the Goleta West Sanitary District Municipal Service Review.
If there's concurrence amongst the commission, I've made a note to make that change as part of that. I think that's a simple change to make.
Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to, as has been figured out and worked out with respect to the rest of this.
So moved.
Mr. Chair, Madam
wanna-
Commissioner, are you, what's your motion to adopt the whole thing or continue part of it?
The motion would be to continue the part as you've recommended and to make the change that Chair Freeman suggested.
Okay, so the motion would include then, in paragraph 8 of the resolution, it would include amend the sphere of influence of the Santa Ynez Community Services District to include study area 3 from water, wastewater, MSR for Janin acres and western Santa Ynez acres, or areas, excuse me. And then we need to pick up within, at the end of that sentence, within the boundaries of the agencies as shown in Exhibit E, which should now become D, the current D, which refers to Santa Rita Hills. That would be as requested and appropriately requested, dropped off the resolution. So it was, is that clear? And that marks or matches what Mr. Geyer was suggesting in terms of looking at the agenda. It's the same language. So looking at Mr. Geyer, I see I don't see any objections to what I've said. So that would be the proposed motion.
That sounds right. So it's challenging instead of ineffective. And we are moving to approve the staff recommendation items with the exception of continuing the circled language that was just read by Mr. Dillon to the March meeting, leaving it to council and staff as to how to advise us of what they found.
All right. Motion by Hartman, second by Stark.
And I assume that we're going to drop the plural in spheres.
I thought I read it that way, but yes, that's correct. And we're relabeling Exhibit E to be Exhibit D, and D is dropped.
Assuming everyone's okay with these final amendments to this motion. Motion by Hartman, second by Stark. Moving on to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion seems to have passed.
And Chair Freeman, if I may just note for the record that Commissioner Nelson is absent.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Assuming actually there's nothing else we have to cover on this agenda item. Okay, moving on to information item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, information item number 1 is an update from Lafco 2024 calendar of events.
Mr. Prater.
Thank you, Chair. So we've attached the 2024 Lafco calendar of events for the commission to look over. If there's anything of interest that you would like to attend or be part of, you're welcome to participate in those events. Okay.
Thank you. Is there any comments from the commission? Any questions about this? It seems maybe from Commissioner Stark.
What, is this the land use conference? No.
Okay. Lafco.
Not the land.
It's next. No, I have
Okay.
no comment, but.
All right. Okay, any public comment on this item?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, there are no requests to speak on this item.
Okay, moving on to information item number 2. Will the clerk please read that item to the record?
Information item number 2 is to receive and file a report on the UCLA Planning and Land Use Conference to be held February 2nd, 2024.
Mr. Prater.
All right, thank you very much. That's essentially what I was going to announce, that this year's land use conference is February 2nd. We have a meeting on February 1st. For those that wanted to attend, they're all in person. We would hope you would attend our Lafco meeting first and then travel down to attend that. If there is a desire to join, we've attached, based off their website, the conference materials, what the agenda covers, who their guest speakers are, for your information. Essentially, the way it works is if you would wish to attend as a commissioner, you would register yourself. You would ask for a reimbursement from staff as part of your reimbursement package, as LAFCO will cover the cost of travel down and attendance.
Thank you so very much. So did Commissioner Stark now have a comment? Because earlier in the last one when I posted.
No, not necessarily. I highly recommend this conference. It's really substantive, and if you really want, you can get there up and back in one day. You don't have. There's 2 ways to do it. Both involve very early rising.
All right. Well, certainly we've got a comment from Commissioner Hartman.
Commissioner Stark, you are attending and you'll report back with your usual thoroughness?
Yes, I would point out for people who are interested, this Mayor Bass of the city of Los Angeles is going to be their keynote speaker, which is probably a couple of notches up from their usual keynote.
Want to verify the mic at the end is on? I don't know if either Osborne or Geyer had a comment they wanted to make. Okay.
I don't know, Mr. Geyer, you have like.
I have a mic on?
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, moving on to public comment on this agenda item.
We have no requests to speak on this item.
All right, then I think we're moving on to commissioner announcements. And we already got an announcement earlier about the various commissioner supervisor forums. Any requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, I think we will now go to executive officer comments.
Thank you. I have just one comment, which is we are in the midst of an election for special district representation. The ballots have been sent out. We expect ballots to be returned by the 19th, February 19th, and which we hope we get at least 20 so that we can select our new membership for those seats. Barring if we do not receive 20 votes, we will have to continue it until we get to the 20 vote mark. And so we'll just keep continuing opening the ballot period until we get to 20 votes in so that we can get a majority vote there. And that the city selection committee is meeting on January 18th. And so should have those seats filled as well. With that, I have no further comment.
All right, thank you. Any quick questions for the executive officer? Seeing none, I believe that means we are now adjourned to Thursday, February 1st, 2024 at 1 p.m. in Santa Barbara.